What's up, everybody? We having a good day today. Is there anything else going on this evening? I appreciate y'all coming in and joining us. It's gonna be one of those nights. It's gonna be one of those nights. All right. Welcome to a Josh Says Mean Things. Today, I'm actually going to be wearing a Says Mean Things shirt. Cool. We started something new in our merch store. This shirt's actually not available yet. I'm retweaking it. I don't like where it's going in terms of which shirt I used and all those good things. But still working on it. But this one will be back in the store available soon. So if y'all like this shirt, I'll post a link eventually on where to get it. But yeah, it says Mean Things. But on maybe it's a good night, right? It's election night in the United States. Maybe it's a good night to wear it. Maybe I should say more mean things. I don't know. What's up, Patty? I see you. How you doing? And I'm trying to get the chat to go. There we go. Look, got that everything going. Better than TV. I am better than TV. I have a face made for radio. And yeah. That's about the nicest thing somebody can say to me. Man, you have a face for radio and a voice for, I don't know what I have a voice for. Today I have good allergies, so my voice is going to be setting off car alarms as I'm walking by everything, as I rumble my way through this. So hopefully your subwoofers aren't turned on, because I don't want to rumble through all the gates and yeah, I sound like a car going. So yeah, awesome. Well, like I said, I'm glad for y'all to join us. This is episode 13 of Josh Says Mean Things, continuing our 2020 steamrolling with our podcast. Our podcast is up to 15. Make podcast is up to 15. That's pretty awesome. Josh Says Mean Things has been growing in our Learn Lightroom Live. Ooh, we're going to be doing Learn Lightroom Live in 2 weeks. I don't have a topic yet. So if y'all have any topics that you want me to cover, I kind of like the idea of talking more about the color grading tool, because that's a new thing. So maybe if you send me a photo or two, maybe just one, just send me a photo, the raw file. If anybody wants to send me a raw file, I think we're going to go talk about that some more. So yeah, if y'all are up for that, let me know who is, and we'll go from there. So what's up, Mark? How you doing, man? Good to see you. So yeah, if for the next Lightroom Live, which will be in 2 weeks, 2 Tuesdays from now, send me a raw file and maybe we'll play with it live. Maybe just a couple of y'all. So I can't do too many, but I think that'd be a good way to look at the new color grading tools, because I think they're really neat. I've been playing with them more. I've been building more presets based off them. And if y'all have read my last Patreon post, I actually included it. I don't know if y'all saw it, but I included it at the bottom of the post, so you can take a look at it and kind of see what I was trying to do. So if you have questions on how to like export and import your presets, that's probably a good one to do as well. It'll only take about 30 seconds to learn that, though. So awesome. Well, y'all want to start talking about some photos? I kind of wanted to BS just for a few minutes as everybody gets logged in, and I don't know what else is going on tonight. I'm not sure. Is anything? I don't think so. That's a joke. I have all anxiety today. I have been doom scrolling since about 8 o'clock this morning, which is my favorite word of this year, doom scrolling, when you're just feeling that anxiety and you're just looking for, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm looking for when I'm doom scrolling, but I do it. So I don't know. I say I'm reading the news, but it's just doom scrolling. Yeah, Mark, you actually have two. I went ahead and threw both of yours in because they were both interesting. So awesome. Well, let's get through it. So this is the first image. This is from, oh, Mark, look at the shirt. What? Says Mean Things? Ooh, ooh. The most appropriate shirt Josh has ever worn. That's what everybody says about me, is that he says mean things. He was mean about my photo. He was mean about it. I was, and you deserved it. That's not true. So this first photo is from Jenna Citrus. Jenna and I have been doing some collaborating, not on work, but on business. And so she was actually one of our most recent podcast guests. Go check out her stuff. It's really cool. And on this photo, I'm kind of curious actually what it is. I can't tell if it is a backdrop that you shot against. I don't know if it was photoshopped in. I don't think it was shot with a drone. I'm guessing the camera was elevated. Um, yeah, so I'm kind of curious exactly how this was shot. I will take your guesses in the comments because I'm curious as well. Um, but here's the thing that I like about it. One, it kind of creates a mood. We're going to be talking about mood a lot tonight, and setting a mood and kind of creating that vibe. Um, the hard part for me on this one is that the lighting is really bright on the lower part of her dress, and it kind of takes away from the flowers in her face. And so those highlights on the dress are just a little too much for me. I would have liked to have seen those darkened, just kind of burn those highlights down a little bit, and then just a little bit more exposure toward the face. And also the lights vary coming like 90 degrees across, and so more from above the head. So if we take that light, if it's at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, maybe make it more like 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock on where we move it, so that, I don't know, the light's a little more flattering as it comes across the face. That whenever I try to do overhead shots, I always have to remember to really put the light. It's kind of weird when you're setting it up, but really coming from down or kind of across your forehead. But right now it's kind of coming right across her eye line. And so it's really kind of making the cheek look all squished up and all of that. And I probably would have lit from the flower side instead of from the dress side, because I want to see more detail on the flowers than on the dress. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure, Mark. And Steven, I'm with you too. I'm not entirely sure if she's laying down. Jen, if you're watching this, that'd be a great time to comment because we're curious. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's going on. But I like it. I liked it. It evokes a mood. I think this is a good example of. I think the centered composition is fine because we have water to one side and sand to the other, so we kind of have a contrast there. I don't think this would have been better if it had been, rule of thirds or something. So I think the center composition works. I think the dress is too bright, and then like the elbow's too hot, and so just kind of get that exposure more to the face, more to the flowers. So yeah. Yeah, is it an overlay? There's something on her shoulder too. I'm not sure what's going on her shoulder. I don't know if that's like a lace thing or if it's actually water because the dress kind of looks wet. I'm very confused, but I like that about this photo. I like being confused. Wait, that sounds wrong. But don't repeat that. That sounds wrong. All right, what do we got next? Oh, this is from one of our newest patrons. This is from Austin. Austin actually used to work for me a long time ago, and now look, he's out on his own doing photo shoots all by himself. So it's good to see him come full circle. I think he just had a wedding anniversary too. So Austin, if you're out there listening, what's up, Austin? Good to see you, man. This was he was shooting a chef for a marketing company. He works for a marketing company, photographing a chef. There's something I love about this, which is that the light really focuses your attention on the meal, right? Your eye goes immediately to the center of the photo because that's where the light is, and that all works. So I think that is a good use of lighting. Here's my main thing though. There's 3 fingers. If you go up from the noodles up the line, there's just 3 fingers kind of hovering, and it looks like the 3 fingers have gotten chopped off and are about to fall into the food. I didn't take this photo. I know. But those fingers do. I would crop I would crop out the fingers because it's kind of weird that they're just like the little tips of them. Maybe not the most healthy. The other thing that would do if we brought it down, the reflection of the food, we're losing some of that reflection. So if we had come down about 10%, I think the photo is going to be stronger. You don't have that distraction of the 3 little nibs of finger, but we also are going to get more reflection of the skillet and the food. And I also like that this feels like it's selective coloring in the sense that everything's pretty neutral toned, monochromatic, except for the reds and oranges. And so it's kind of neat the way the food pops out versus the rest of the color of the room. I find noodles and like marinara, Italian food is very hard to shoot. If you've never shot like lasagna, it's one of the tougher things to shoot because it's very specular. It's very shiny food, and that makes it difficult to photograph. It kind of, a lot of times it'll look wet and dull, and that's not usually appetizing. Something that could also help here is a polarizer, because it takes out some of that specularness from the food and it makes it look a little bit more appetizing. So, yeah. Anyway, but I like how the light is centered on the food, and we don't need to see anything else to know exactly what's going on. Just crop out those fingers because it looks like they're about to fall into our dish, and that'd be gross. We don't want falling fingers dish. All right, here's the first of Mark's. What's up, Mark? Look at you coming in some flowers. We have a lot of flowers and bees this month. The first thing I want to note about this photo is the rule of odds. You've heard me talk about it if you've watched any of our streams, but the rule of odds says that 1s, 3s, and 5s are very interesting. 2s, 4s, and 6s, not so much. And so of the main flowers, we have 3. And then of the accent flowers, we have 5. So we do have 1s, 3s, and 5s going on. So that's good. So I think right off the bat, right, because we had control over composition, right? I'm guessing this was shot in a home studio. You know, it definitely has that feel of, you know, we could control where things were. So good choice on the number of things you picked. I would say on the crop, I think this layout feels like it could be interesting as a 16:9 ratio instead of a 3:2. And I'd just be curious what it would look like as a 16:9. There's a little bit more space above and below than there is left to the right, and so that just kind of makes me think more panorama. I find also that when I shoot like wide angle, not that this is wide angle, but when I shoot wide angle like 16 mil, 16 to 20 mil, I tend to, it's hard to fill the frame both left to right and up to down. And I find that when I shoot wider, the wider I shoot, the more I want to put it in a wider format and get rid of that top and bottom, just because it feels a little bit more natural to me. You read your book, yeah. So yeah, that's what I would go. I think this would be an interesting print as a 16:9. That'd be my first thing. Also, I'm kind of curious. You know, the purples and blues feel kind of oversaturated. Maybe, I'm not sure. I think you were telling me about how this was done, but I don't remember. And so the flowers have a very interesting look to them. They're almost translucent. But then the purple flowers, it feels like those purple channels just got a little bit overcooked. And so maybe turn that down just a touch. So I'm curious what it would look like desaturated even more, where it was just faintly there. And then again, I also think if that background wasn't black and if it was a white background, what that would look like as well. I think that could be a very interesting high key look, where everything's very bright and white and clean. I don't know. It's interesting. I kind of went back and forth on what I would do with this photo. I think it could go in a lot of different directions. And I think that's because the composition is really good. And so that allows you not to worry about the composition, kind of go on to other, you know, whichever way you want to go with it in other ways. So that was good. Now this one I really liked. I'm not huge into animal photos. It just is what I shoot. But if this wasn't and I know it's not a lizard. It's probably like a knoll or something. I can't remember what they're called. But if we just squint our eyes, right, just kind of squint and just see the color and how many shades of green and yellow there are. In that this whole photo is almost one color, but it's not, right? I mean, it's a bunch of yellows and greens, and I love that monochromatic feel to it. The other thing I love is that his head is internally framed. We're also going to be talking more about internal framing today, so pay attention. Internal framing. But I really love that. It feels very zen. It feels very calming. This photo feels very calming to me because there aren't any big color contrasts. So nothing is really like pushed in your face. It's very monochromatic, tends to be more subdued in feel versus like if this was like red and yellow, right? If there's like a red background with a yellow leaf with a green, right? It doesn't feel calm. Whereas this one feels very calm and serene, and just this little guy's just hanging out in a leaf, man, just chilling, right? It's almost like he's just on his little like leaf hammock, just chilling out. But I think the mood that it sets is very calm and serene, especially with green kind of going with that tranquility mindset, that lush quality of just relaxation, right? I think there's a lot going on there. So well done. Eyes nice and sharp, nice and detailed, nice and textured, all those good things. But I think the bigger thing, if it wasn't all yellow and green, I don't think it would be a strongest photo. And so to get to that level, I think it's really good that it's that mellow monochromatic. Yeah, very cool. All right, this one's from Mark Brennan. We have a couple Marks today. Him and his wife were just in Yellowstone. Looks very cold. I'm currently growing my beard out. I'm going out into the desert, West Texas, over Thanksgiving, and so I'm getting my bison beard growing as well. Look at that, more than fingerlet, So I'm getting ready. I won't shave until after that trip, so it's going to get wild and woolly here. We have another photo that suffers the same thing. There's things I really like about this photo, but don't cut off the feet, the hooves. I don't know. Do bison have hooves? Is that what they are? I don't know. But the feet are cropped just at the bottom, and so don't crop up people's feet. Nobody wants to be a pirate. Nobody wants to have a wooden peg leg, right? We want to stand on our own 2 feet or 4 feet, whatever you have. But what I like about this, it does kind of evoke a tintype feel. It has that kind of older feel to it. The other thing, and again, if we talk composition, I love that the trees behind are very vertical, and then the arch of the back is a circle against the verticality of the trees. And so as we think more and more about composition, about, squaring circles and all of that, I think this is a good example of, the bison and where it was and how it was cropped really forms a circle against this verticality of a stand of trees. And to me, that would be the thing I would try to replicate the most from this photo. The toning, I could go either way on it. I tend not to like sepia all that much. I think for this photo, it works. But if I were trying to replicate something curved against something straight, I think is a good thing to try to emulate and take from this photo. I'm glad you weren't charged, right? I'm glad you weren't. The bison didn't turn around and say, "No more photos, please," and just start running after you. So, shooting in the snow is hard, both because it's cold and it's hard to, move your hands. But also cameras kind of freak out with snow, right? They see snow and their exposures. They don't like it. They want to be in the middle, right? They want to be at middle gray in a dark bison or a snow-filled background. It doesn't really want to choose. So a lot of times you get really blown out or really underexposed photos. It'll go one way or the other, depending on how you have it metered. So good job of not totally losing your photo to snow or blocking it out. So yeah, I don't know. I would try it in something other than sepia and just see how that would go too. That'd be my other suggestion. But don't cut off the hooves. Don't cut off the hooves. Mark, I was also, if you're watching this, I was really expecting you to throw in your wife doing yoga in the snow or something like that. And that's what I was thinking we were going to see. But we got a bison. All right. Look, Star Trails from... No, this isn't my photo. I know it looks like mine, but this is from my good buddy, Mr. Kosh. And he said he shot this somewhere outside of Elgin, Texas. Good place to get sausage. Now, for Star Trails... I have been playing with software. I used to use StarStax as my Star Sky blender. That's a good way to say it. Well, as the blender software. I talked to Kosh and he said that he used Photoshop, but I think there's some frames missing. Hey Jenna, we just talked about hey Jenna, now that you're on. How did you do your shot? Is it a composite? Is it on a ladder? How'd you do it? Are you standing up? Are you laying down? We have questions. We need answers. So for Star Trails though, I really like the feel of the stars almost being like a bunch of meteors where they kind of have tails and they're moving across the screen. And so for me, by missing some frames, it feels a little staccato, which adds some energy, but that energy against the calmness of the water here doesn't necessarily work as well for me. I would have liked to have seen maybe some gap filling, or something where, I don't know, maybe something got out of order. I'm not sure, but the trails themselves, it looks like a couple frames got missed. And you can just tell by the gaps in some of the stars. I would have also liked to have seen more exposure in the foreground. You're really tall. Were you on stilts? What was it? But for this one, yeah, I'd like to see a better foreground exposure. And so sometimes that happens before we start taking the stars, maybe like a blue hour or a sunset photo where we get that light coming across our foreground, instead of just everything kind of fading to black. Because if we see on the right hand side, it looks like there's a little bit of light in the trees, but as we get to that left tree, man, it's just shadow, which, okay, but I would have liked to have just seen a little bit more exposure out of the water and a little bit over our midground. So those would be the things that I would fix. Yeah, that gap filling, there's got to be a frame or two missing in there for some reason. Stars can be hard if you miss, or if there's one big mistake, that can really put a damper on the whole exposure, which is why they're hard to do. Shower curtain, double exposure. Okay. With an ocean image. Interesting. Is that why you had a little bit on the shoulder? Yeah, that'd be my guess. Okay. All right. We're trying to figure out how you did it. That's cool. Very cool. We took guesses and none of us were right. None of us said double exposure. So good job. Good job in tricking tricking all the photographers out here. So yeah, star trails are hard because, the longer you go, the more chance there is for error. The longer you're trying to let your exposures goes, right? If a car comes in and washes its headlights across, it can really mess things up. And so, but that's why when they all hit and when everything comes together, they're really good, powerful images. And I like the composition of this. I don't think you have to always point toward the north. The North Star, and this one is just out of frame. And what I like about that is it starts showing the curve on the other side. As we get further away, we start getting that other radial going in the other direction. And so that's kind of fun too. So I would have liked to see a brighter foreground. Generally, that's kind of my biggest thing. And then number two, just do some gap filling on the stars. And so what I'm using now is I'm using Sequator. And I've enjoyed that. I like that I can mask in where I want it to go, where Star Stacks is just kind of a brute force method. I'm still learning Sequator. I don't know that I've gotten 100% out of it, but what I've gotten out of it, I like better than what Star Stacks was giving me. So your mileage may vary. Bees, this is from Michelle. There's going to be a couple bee photos. I just printed I just tried out a new paper today too that I've had forever. And I just felt like I finally had some images that fit it. So I tried out the new Canson Infinity Edition etching. Very cool. 310 grams, so heavy paper, but smooth. Ugh, it's good. I like it. I'm going to print more. I'm probably already going to buy another box. I really like it. So Michelle used this, and she borrowed my 100 macro. All right, Jen, we'll see you in a bit. So for this one with animals, especially insects, always closer, right? On this one, 100 macro may actually not have been enough. 180 macro might have been the lens to pick here. Now, none of us had 180, but just so you know, that's what kind of gives you that working distance. So for this one, I would have liked to have seen it cropped in and punched in a little bit more. What I like about this, if we look just at the bee, it's actually the white of the bee fur is against the black kind of negative space. And I would come in maybe to like 20% out of 100%, like all the way in to just that bee area. Yeah, that'd be the first thing I would do. Punch in a whole lot because nothing else is really adding to the composition. Nothing else is telling the story, right? The story is the bee on the flower. And so I would punch into that to make that more apparent to the viewer, because as it is right now, it's kind of unclear what the viewer is supposed to be seeing. So if we're telling the story of the bee, we need to get a close up of the bee so he can tell our story. And I don't feel that we're, I don't feel that we're all the way in. You have 180 macro, Mark? You should have, see? I know, interesting. But this was from our photo club walk. We did a little walk at the Wildflower Center in South Austin, and so she had borrowed my macro lens. Yeah. Anyway, also the colors seem desaturated, which that's fine too. It almost feels like there's frost on them, and so I'm curious what you did in post. Maybe a bleach bypass. I'm not sure, but the post processing is definitely taking it to a different way, which good. Experiment, do those things. But I'm curious why. It does kind of feel like it's frosty or snowy. So interesting. Keep playing with it. But I think the first thing to do would be, punch in a whole bunch. That'd be my biggest thing. Because I want to see the details of the little like bee arms and the little pollen bags and the little wings. That's what I want to see. Yeah. All right. Oh, look. And Patty says, this is not a bee. This is a bee mimic. She said it's actually a fly. And I find this interesting. So I'm guessing this is Patty's. I forget who submitted this. Again, from our photo walk at the Wildflower Center. Our good friends at the Wildflower Center. They've been very good to us. And I kind of like the dreaminess of this. Again, kind of talking about mood and just it being kind of dreamy. With those out of focus highlights, everything just kind of fades away. This not bee that looks like a bee is just kind of chilling, right? So if we think about these two, look at how kind of chaotic and busy this one is versus this feels more dreamy and subtle. Murder hornet? I hope it's not a murder hornet. We're in trouble. Everybody at the Wildflower Center is in trouble if it's a murder hornet. But again, I think, we have a good contrast in the yellow of this not bee and the purple flower, right? We have good color contrast. And then the one thing in focus that we want to see is the one thing that's in focus that we need to see. And there's nothing else to compete for our attention. Everything else is just background blur. And so I think that's good. And I like it now how the background, you can tell that there's a little bit of green, a little bit of red, and it's just colors and just shapes and nothing to really distract you from the not murder hornet, not bee, whatever that thing is. I forget what she told me. She told me what it was today and I forget, but hovering bee or something like that. I don't know. It's cool. I've never seen that and I didn't know that existed. So I learned something today and that's what matters because learning is half the battle. All right. Now, this one I call Pumpkin BDSM. Now, this is from Kiera. You might see her as Furby Gang or Kiera Hand Photography. Not you. Okay, but that's the one you were talking about, right, Patty? That's the one you were talking about? Maybe so. So Kiera asked me on this one. She's like, I like this photo. It just, there's something. She likes it. She didn't love it. So she asked me, Josh, what would I do to make this a lovable photo? First of all, props to getting two people out into the woods and putting pumpkins on their heads. Okay? That's a huge hurdle to get people to go like, hey, listen, guys, I got an idea. Here's what we're going to do. Y'all going to dress up in leather. We're going to put pumpkins on your head, and we're going to go walk out into the woods. Right? That's a big hurdle just to even get to this point. Okay? Just want to throw out those props as we're going. But what I want to talk about is light. Oh, I know, right? Big jump in topics for Josh here, talking about light. What's he going to say? And what I'm going to say is we're in a woods, right? We're in a woods where there's tree branches and there's grass and there's all of these things, but our light doesn't show it. I think a problem that we have a lot is that light doesn't feel motivated, and it feels too clean. I think the only time we really have really clean, pure light is in a dentist office, right? Maybe on my ring light right in front of me here, right? That clean, pure light. But these people are getting funky, and they're getting weird out in the woods. And so any light that would be coming through the woods should be obscured. By that, I mean, it's probably going to have to travel through branches or twigs or stumps or something. And so the light shouldn't be this even. It should have shadows in it. It should have highlights in it. It should have a dimension to it. And also, it could also have a color to it. The color of this light feels a little clean. Now, I know later that you went to gels, but I don't know. It just feels too. Everything about this feels too clean to really sell the photo. The other thing I would say is I think this would have been better as a horizontal versus a vertical, because everything above maybe like the top 30% of the photo, it doesn't really add anything to it. And so going horizontal, maybe you could have gotten closer and wider and skewed everything where the pumpkin head closest to us was more skewed and to the left, and it would exaggerate the distance of the person in the back. So it would already kind of make it feel a little creepy, right? So if it's not good enough, get closer. But two, I would have put the light shining and hitting branches and casting shadows, and changing colors, right? Picking up some of the greens and yellows and oranges of the woods. You know, you could have used haze, you could have used smoke. Those things are all possible. But I think a horizontal crop, or at least a square crop, might even work, right? A 1-to-1 square crop could also work, where it's just above her head. I think that could help as well. It's just, it feels like all the choices were in between, aside from getting a couple wearing leather in the woods with pumpkins on their heads. That choice was not in between. That choice is amazing. But yeah, I just think that the light feels too much like a studio shoot. So, putting an orange gel on one and a purple gel on the other, and then firing it through the leaves so that there's shadows across her body. Like that, to me, I think would have made it more spooky and more interesting. So that's what I'm going with. Also, maybe a little color grading in Lightroom, right? I'll bring it back, a little color grading, so that it doesn't look as clean. Maybe add some different colors to the highlights and shadows. So, all right. Speaking of mood, this is from my buddy Brian, who's shooting a movie stills in Florida for the next month. So, what's up, Brian? Have fun in Florida. But I think this does a really good job of setting that mood, right? This definitely feels spooky. There's nothing in this photo other than what Brian wanted you to see. There's no twigs, there's no trees, there's no pumpkin heads, there's no bees. There's a woman wearing bull horns, and she's jumping on a rock. And that's all we see, in a very moody sky behind. Okay. And so I think this one feels more graphic. I think this feels more, I don't know, just feels more dark, which is funny because the last photo had the potential to go very dark in mood and in setting, but the light felt a little lighter, whereas this mood feels very dark. And again, I don't mind the center comp here. I think the center comp works. It almost has a feel of like 15th century religious art, right? Where that center figure would have been centered, and then like, a gold rays around her head, right? It definitely feels more of that. The horns kind of serve that purpose. I would even maybe take it a step further and take out some of the rock and darken the rock that she's jumping off that ledge, and darken that even a little bit more, so that it really is just kind of this floating figure in space. It's hard. I think the best photos are the ones that they look simple. They look simple because there's no distractions to them. I think this is a good example of that. This photo looks easy to execute, but finding a place to shoot it where there aren't branches, where there aren't street lights, where there aren't, telephone wires, all those things, right? So where can you even go to make this photo? That's a hard decision. But then have it where you get those moody clouds and you get the moody skies and everything's working, where there's no distractions. So yeah, I think it's well done. Good job, Brian. Out in Florida, shooting movies. I'm guessing bungee cord. Yeah, right. Little Matrix style harness rig. I think this photo is cool, right? It's a very simple idea. Person in a dress jumping, but it adds that tension because she's not on the ground. We have added tension, but then her face is serene. So I think it's a good contrast. All right, this is from, I was actually there the next day at this shoot. This is from our good friend Mia. What's up, Mia? Hope you're out there doing good. And Mia's one of our patrons. She's a model, obviously, so we see a lot of pictures of her, and I think that's cool. I like giving feedback for this kind of thing, so I think it's interesting. So earlier we talked about that lizard and how it had a really nice internal framing, right? It had a leaf kind of surrounding its head to give it just a color to exist against. And I think this photo almost has that, but missed. So the curtains are splitting her head where they could have been framed by the mirror, right? So if we see that mirror behind, right, that could have been the frame for her head and had some internal framing. And I think that would have given the photo a better structure, okay? The other thing, if you look at her left hand, right, again, we have cut off fingertips. And so just having the fingertips rest on the table versus dropping down, I think that would have made it a little bit better. It bothers me that her knuckles got chopped. And then thirdly, the photographer took time to do skin retouching. You can tell because the eyes are brightened and the skin's smoother. But then we have a lot of flyaways in the hair. So if you're going to go to the trouble to retouch the skin, go to the trouble to retouch hair. I know it's time consuming. I get that. But if you want to make it feel in the moment and kind of above reality, then go all the way and fix the hair as well. I do like the moment, in a kind of a cool kitchen, drinking a cup of tea, shallowed up the field. All those things are good. We actually have a little bit of foregrounding going on with the chair in front, giving us some depth to it. But man, I just would have moved like 3% to my left to frame her head in that window. So that she's more in relief, right? Because then her head's against the brightest object, and as now the side of her face and the brightness of the window are kind of competing each other for where you look. And if you were to move just a little bit to where her head's in that gap, then the entirety of her head is relieved, and it's going to cause you to go more toward her face. Also, the eyes are a little bit over processed. It's a very easy thing to do when you're processing photos to make eyes like a little done, overcooked. Don't overcook the eyes. There's no reason the whites of the eye should be that bright on the shadow side, right? If that's on the shadow side of her face, there's no reason for it to be that bright. And then on the bright side of her face, the eye is duller. Yeah, that doesn't add up. So ease up on the eye retouching. It's easy to get carried away. I've certainly done it. But the show's called Josh Says Mean Things, so get after it. All right. Oh, Steven. I love this photo. How big are you going to print this, Steven? Tell our viewers. 24-36? 30 by 40? I love this. So this is, I don't know where this is from. Steven, if you're listening still, you can throw out the viewers. Tell them what it is. But I love the horizontal strips at the bottom. There could potentially, with a long lens, be a very interesting abstract photo just in that orange and blue strips in the bottom. It almost looks like the car, the DeLorean from Back to the Future, just ran across the bottom of the water, right? It's just the two strips of flames going across. I say that with love. I think that's really cool. And then just the rays of the sunset. This is really well done. There's contrast. And there's smoothness in the clouds. Alaska, okay. There's smoothness in the clouds. There's harshness in the lines. Then we have a mountain range. It's cool. Do you have any with just the water? Like just a macro, not a macro, but like a big telephoto of just the water? I think that could be an interesting photo. I don't know. Just abstract-y. Because there's a lot going on. But I love that we have a horizontal lines and then kind of diagonal lines going against it. So good job. I got nothing mean to say about this one. This is beautiful. Looks really good. Keep doing those. Do more like this. Right. Now, most people shoot a sunset photo, but then don't provide a foreground. But I really love this foreground because it kind of goes blue, orange, blue. And so it's a really neat foreground, and it has a good weight. if you ever watch soccer, they always talk about putting the right weight on the pass so that it rolls to the next player's feet just in time, right? Kind of creating that weight to where you kick it, but it has the right speed and the right pace. And I think this one has the right speed and pace. There's enough room for the sky to live, and there's just enough foreground to be interesting. And so, that can be hard to find the right weight to it, the right feel, right? So if we imagine a photo sitting on a seesaw, does it balance? Or does it imbalance in an interesting way? This one kind of has, it's almost in the shape of an L, because we have all these horizontal lines this way, and then the sun comes up. And so we almost have an L, and then just everything else is just kind of negative space going out. So well done. Well done. I got nothing but good things on that one. All right. This is from, I think, Ronnie. Very interesting composition. We have curves and a diagonal. I like how this photo starts on the lower right, and those lines kind of go around up and around and through. And then we have a diagonal bisecting. This, if you squint your eyes, it almost looks like a, you always see like the rice paddies in Thailand kind of photo, right? Those stair steps. This kind of looks like that if you squint your eyes. It has that feel. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more diagonal in that vein. I would have liked to have seen it more that way, right? I want to see it more that way, just a little bit more, not a lot more, but just a little bit more, or make it perfectly straight. But it's just a little bit askew, and either go straight up or more. It doesn't have to be 45, but just a little more tilt to it. The other thing I would say is it feels a little underexposed. It feels like it's maybe half a stop to a stop underexposed. Again, this could come down to calibrating people's monitors as well. How it looks on your monitor may not be how it looks on my monitor. But to me, on my monitor that I know is calibrated, it just seems a little dark. So maybe add another half stop to a stop exposure so that we can see all the cool texture in the leaves, right? That's on a shot like this, right? We want to see that texture. We want to see the grain. We want to see all those things, right? Good job of getting this close, but now let us see it. Let us see the fruits of your labors of getting this close. So good composition, add a little more exposure, tilt a little bit to the right. Cool. Aw, kitty cat. Who doesn't love kitty cats? I have 2 cats. I'm surprised my other one's not jumping up on my lap. He usually does. Big old beastie. Now again, with the last animal photo, don't cut off their paws. His little tips right at his knuckles got clipped. Don't cut off their feet. They need their feet to run around. But really fun expression, right? The cat kind of just lolling back. And then we have a reflection against, I'm guessing, maybe the hood of a car or something like that. And I don't mind that the background's blown out. I love the kind of bokeh balls in the back. It also feels like the shutter speed was just a touch slow because it feels like there's a little bit of movement in their eyes. Like it doesn't feel like there was enough shutter speed. And it looks like the cat was moving. So there just wasn't quite enough shutter speed to capture the movement of the cat. So, I'd bump that up just a little bit. It was enough, and I'm guessing it was shot with the lens that had IS because the reflection is sharp, but the actual movement of the subject isn't. And so that would mean that anything that, for an IS lens, everything that's still is going to be okay, but if there's movement, it doesn't counteract the movement of a subject. So that'd be my guess. My guess is actually that it was shot with a 70-200 2.8, so that the body has a little bit closer to that edge, and that the cat paws aren't cut off. Don't cut them off. But I like this photo. Feels warm and toned well. Just a little bit faster shutter speed and just a little bit over. And I think it's a much stronger photo. All right, and here's our last photo for the night. And this definitely has that vibe for the night, which is everything's getting weird. And so this is actually from Patty. She told me she was playing with it in Photoshop and trying out some of the new features. Yeah, it's definitely getting weird out there. You know what? You have to push the boundaries. You have to push and explore, and kind of see what you have. You know, I think Mark Lasad and now Patty, I think that good examples of both of them, like pushing what they're doing with and doing things in new ways in Lightroom and Photoshop and post processing. There's so many tools out there right now that it's kind of hard to it's hard to keep up. You know, I think also somebody asked me, hey, do you think AI is going to ruin photography? And I say, I don't think so at all. It'll help everybody get to average, but I don't think it's going to ever be enough to take an average photo and make it have a singular vision. And this is kind of an example of that, where no AI is going to come up with this, right? As humans, we're always going to rebel against whatever the main thing in our right is. And so there's going to be that counter movement against the popular, AI or whatever. So, I think this is a good example of just going weird and just trying things out and seeing what's going to happen. So yeah, that's good. Keep exploring, keep pushing, keep submitting to Josh Says Mean Things. I hope everybody has a wonderful night. Yeah, I hope everybody liked the new Says Mean Things shirt. I'm going to be re-adding them back to the merch store next week or so. I didn't love which ones. I got a test sample and I didn't love it as much as I wanted to love it. So those will be available here soon. Let's see. Oh, and then Lightroom Live. Yeah, we'll do that in 2 weeks. So yeah, submit some raw files and we'll play with them and we'll do live demos in Lightroom. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel because we like to say mean things. And thanks to all of our Patrons for being there, supporting us and helping us have time and energy and effort to make our art, interview artists. So yeah, anyway, good night, y'all. Hope you enjoyed it. Share this with your friends and we'll talk to y'all soon.